What is up, everybody? J.T'S once again. I'm here to do my 2019 NCAA Men's Tournament Bracket predictions. Now, with the regular season in the books, we are now into my favorite part of the year as a college basketball fan, and that's March Madness and the NCAA Tournament. And the road to Minneapolis starts right now. So I'm very excited to do my tournament predictions for you guys this year. This could be a long video because I'll be making picks from the first round all the way up to the national championship. So sit back, relax, grab something to eat, grab something to drink, and get your brackets ready, and I hope you guys do enjoy. Now, our record last year was good. We went 29-11. So hopefully in this video we will continue the winning ways and get another tournament winning record. Hopefully. And hopefully you guys will be able to watch all of my videos. As always, show your support on all of my videos by watching those videos, super kicking those like buttons and that notification bell, and commenting your picks, your opinions, and representing your college basketball teams in the comment sections down below. Now, if this is your first time watching my channel today, as a first time viewer, and this is your first video, boy, big to go. And if you're a huge college basketball fan like myself and you're ready for this year's NCAA tournament. Welcome to the Dangerous Lines. I'm J.T'S. Welcome to the club, because this club is two. Whoop, whoop. Again, thank you guys so very much. Now, other than that, let's get right into these predictions. Starting off in the East region with the #1 overall seed in this year's NCAA tournament. They are my favorite team in college basketball. They are the Duke Blue Devils, and their opponents will be determined on Wednesday between North Carolina Central and North Dakota State. So coming from me in this first 1/16 showdown, man, this Duke team this year could definitely make a deep run. When you got Coach K running the show, you got Zion Williamson, who came back from the ankle injury he suffered earlier in the season, came back, won the ACC title for us, and this Duke team is going to go deep. I got a good feeling the Blue Devils are going to go deep this year. So coming from me, I am taking my Duke Blue Devils to defeat the winner of North Carolina Central and North Dakota State. And now the next matchup, it is the dreaded and very unpredictable 8-9 showdown between the #8 seed, the Rams of VCU, facing off against the 9th seed, the Knights of UCF. So coming from me in this 8-9 showdown, man, I hate these 8-9 matchups every year. But I'm going to go with the Rams of VCU to defeat the UCF Knights. And now the next matchup, the 5-12 showdown between the #5 seed, the Mississippi State Bulldogs, facing off against the #12 seed, the Flames of Liberty. So coming from me in this 5-12 showdown, I'm going to go with the Mississippi State Bulldogs to defeat the Liberty Flames. And now the next matchup, the 4-13 battle between the #4 seed, the Virginia Tech Hokies, facing off against the #13 seed, the Billikens of St. Louis. Now, I'm really hoping Virginia Tech gets far, so because I want to, my Duke Blue Devils want to play them, because after the Zion Williams injury, Virginia Tech beat us earlier before the ACC tournament. So I'm really hoping Virginia Tech gets as far as the Sweet 16. So coming from me in this 4-13 showdown, I'm going to go with the Virginia Tech Hokies to defeat the Billikens of St. Louis. And now the next matchup, the 6-11 showdown between the #6 seed, the Maryland Terrapins, and their opponents will be determined on Tuesday between Belmont and the Temple Owls. So coming from me in the 6-11 showdown, I'm going to go with the Maryland Terrapins to defeat the winner of Belmont or Temple. And now the next matchup, the 3-14 showdown between the #3 seed, the LSU Tigers, facing off against the #14 seed, the Yale Bulldogs. So coming from me in this 3-14 showdown, I got to go with the LSU Tigers to defeat the Yale Bulldogs. And now the next matchup, the 7-10 showdown between the Louisville Cardinals, the #7 seed, facing off against the #10 seed, the Minnesota Golden Gophers. So coming from me in this 7-10 showdown, I got to go with the Louisville Cardinal to defeat the Minnesota Golden Gophers. And now the final first-round matchup in the East region, pitting the #2 seed, the Michigan State Spartans, facing off against the 15th seed, the Bradley Braves. Now, this is another fantastic year for Tom Izzo at Michigan State. He won, I think they won the outright Big Ten Conference title and the tournament title. So they're coming in hot with a lot of momentum. And momentum is absolutely key in this tournament. So coming from me in the final first-round matchup in the East region, man, I got to go with Tom Izzo's Michigan State Spartans to defeat the Bradley Braves. Now on to the East region of the first round, pitting the number 1 seed in the East, the Gonzaga Bulldogs, facing off against the winner of Tuesday's first 4 matchup between Friday Dickinson and Prairie View A&M. So coming from me in this 1/16 showdown, got to go with the Gonzaga Bulldogs to defeat the winner of Friday Dickinson or Prairie View A&M. And now the next matchup, the 8-9 showdown between Jim Boeheim's Orangemen of Syracuse facing off against the number 9 seed, the Baylor Bears. So coming from me in this 8-9 showdown in the West, oh man, I got to go with Jim Boeheim's Syracuse Orangemen to defeat the Baylor Bears. And now the next matchup, the 5-12 showdown that could definitely be, one of these teams can definitely make a deep run between the Marquette Golden Eagles, the number 5 seed, facing off against the number 12 seed, the Murray State Racers. So coming from me in this 5-12 showdown, this one's tricky. I'm going to go with an upset. I'm going to go with the Murray State Racers to upset the Marquette Golden Eagles. And now the next matchup, the 4-13 battle between the number 4 seed, the Seminoles of Florida State, facing off against the 13 seed, the Vermont Catamounts. So coming from me in this 4-13 matchup, I'm going to go with the Seminoles of Florida State to defeat Vermont. And now the next matchup, the 6-11 showdown between the Buffalo Bulls and the winner of Wednesday's first 4 matchup between the Arizona State Sun Devils and St. John. So coming from me in this 6-11 showdown, personally, I would love to see Arizona State win that first 4 showdown because it's Bobby Hurley coaching Arizona State right now and playing against his former team, the Buffalo Bulls. And Bobby Hurley, former Duke player. So I'm personally hoping for Arizona State to win this. But coming from me, I'm taking the Buffalo Bulls to defeat the winner of either Arizona State or St. John's. And now the next matchup, the 3-14 showdown between the number 3 seed, the Red Raiders of Texas Tech, facing off against the 14 seed Northern Kentucky. So coming from me in this 3-14 showdown, I got to go with the Red Raiders of Texas Tech to defeat the number 14 seed Northern Kentucky. And now the next matchup, the 7-10 showdown between the Wolfpack of Nevada facing off against the 10 seed, the Gators of Florida. So coming from me in the 7-10 showdown, this one's tricky. I'm going to go with the Nevada Wolfpack to defeat the Florida Gators. And now the final first round matchup in the West region of this year's NCAA tournament, the 2-15 showdown between the number 2 seed in this year's tournament, last year's runner-up in the national championship game, the Michigan Wolverines, facing off against the 15 seed, the Montana Grizzlies. So coming from me in this final first round matchup in the West region of the NCAA tournament this year, I got to go with the Michigan Wolverines to defeat the Montana Grizzlies. Now on to the South region with the first 1/16 showdown. On one side you have the number 1 overall seed in the South region, the team that lost to a 16 seed team last year, number 1 seed, the Virginia Cavaliers, facing off against this year's number 16 seed in the South, Garden Webb. So will history repeat itself and Virginia get knocked out of the first round by a 16 seed, or will Virginia turn it around this season and make a deep run? So coming from me in this 1/16 showdown this year in the South region, I don't think history will strike twice for Virginia here. It would be crazy if it happened for the second year in a row. So I'm going to take the Virginia Cavaliers to defeat Garden Webb. And now the next matchup, the 8-9 showdown between the number 8 seed, the Rebels of Ole Miss, facing off against the number 9 seed, the Oklahoma Sooners. So coming from me in this 8-9 showdown, I'm going to go with the Rebels of Ole Miss to defeat the Oklahoma Sooners. And now the next matchup, the 5-12 showdown between the number 5 seed, the Wisconsin Badgers, facing off against the number 12 seed, the Pac-12 tournament champions, the Oregon Ducks. So coming from me in this 5-12 showdown, this one could go either way for me. Either you go Oregon, who got past Washington to win the conference tournament for the Pac-12, or you go with Wisconsin, who has been there and done that. So coming from me, I'm going to go with the Wisconsin Badgers to defeat the Oregon Ducks. And now the next matchup, the 4-13 showdown between the Kansas State Wildcats, the number 4 seed, facing off against the number 13 seed, the UC Irvine Anteaters. So coming from me in this 4-13 showdown, man, this one's tricky. But I'm going to go with the Kansas State Wildcats to defeat the UC Irvine Anteaters. And now the next matchup, the 6-11 showdown, pitting the reigning national champions. They won the title last year over Michigan. They are the Villanova Wildcats, the 6th seed, facing off against their 11th seed, a team that's been in the NIT so many years after years after years, but they finally won their conference title. They are the Gales of St. Mary's. Now, Villanova is looking to become only the 2nd team to go back-to-back as national champions. The last team to do it was the 2006-2007 Florida Gators. So their road to repeating is on, and it's on against a very good opponent in St. Mary's, a team that beat Gonzaga in their conference tournament. And a lot of people didn't expect St. Mary's to be in the tournament this year. They thought they were going to be in the NIT for the upteenth time, but I'm happy St. Mary's is in the tournament this year. So coming from me in the 6-11 showdown, I don't think it's going to be as easy for Villanova to make it back to the national championship this year. But I'm going to go with the Villanova Wildcats to defeat the Gales of St. Mary's. And now the next matchup, the 3-14 showdown between the number 3 seed, the Purdue Boilermakers, facing off against the number 14 seed, Old Dominion. So coming from me in this 3-14 matchup, I'm going to go with the Purdue Boilermakers to defeat Old Dominion. And now the next tournament matchup, it is the 7-10 battle between the number 7 seed, the Cincinnati Bearcats, facing off against the number 10 seed, the Iowa Hawkeyes. So coming from me in this 7-10 showdown, I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bearcats to defeat the Iowa Hawkeyes. And now the final first-round matchup in the South region of this year's NCAA Tournament, the 2-15 showdown between the number 2 seed, the Tennessee Volunteers, facing off against the number 15 seed, Colgate. Now, for me, this is kind of a surprise. I didn't expect the Tennessee's men's team to make the tournament this year, because it always seems like when it comes to basketball in Tennessee, it's the women that are getting more of the praise with the Lady Vols and Pat Summitt. But I'm actually happy Tennessee's men's basketball team is stepping up this season. I mean, from just having a rough year in football to having a good year in basketball, and they're looking to make a deep run this year. So coming from me in this final first-round matchup in the South region of this year's NCAA Tournament, I'm going to go with the Tennessee Volunteers to defeat Colgate. Now my picks for the Midwest region first round matchup. Starting off with the 1-16 battle, the number 1 seed in the Midwest region this year are our hated rivals, the North Carolina Tar Heels, and their opponents, the 16 seed, the Gales of Iona. So coming from me in this 1-16 battle in the Midwest region, I'm going to go with the North Carolina Tar Heels, even though I hate their guts, to defeat the Gales of Iona. And now the next matchup, the 8-9 showdown between the number 8 seed, the Utah State Aggies, facing off against the number 9 seed, the Washington Huskies. So coming from me in this 8-9 showdown, I'm going to go with the Utah State Aggies to defeat the Washington Huskies. And now the next matchup, the 5-12 showdown between the Auburn Tigers, facing off against the number 12 seed, the New Mexico State Aggies. Now, who would have thought that Bruce Pearl would have been the Pearl that Auburn needed to finally make the tournament and actually win the SEC Conference title for the first time since 1985. But I'm very happy for Bruce Pearl, and this Auburn team can definitely make a deep run. So coming from me in this 5-12 showdown, I got to go with Bruce Pearl and the Auburn Tigers to defeat the New Mexico State Aggies. And now the next matchup, it is the 4-13 matchup between the number 4 seed in this year's tournament in the Midwest region, the Kansas Jayhawks, facing off against the number 13 seed, against Northeastern. Now, when you think the tournament, you think Bill Self in Kansas, and Kansas is back in the tournament, and there's just another team that's going to be hard to pick against because it's Bill Self. So coming from me in this 4-13 matchup, I'm going to take the Kansas Jayhawks to defeat Northeastern. And now the next matchup, it is the 6-11 matchup between the number 6 seed, the Iowa State Cyclones, facing off against the number 11 seed, the Ohio State Buckeyes. So coming from me in this 6-11 showdown, I am taking the Iowa State Cyclones to defeat the Ohio State Buckeyes. And now the next matchup. It is the 3-14 matchup between the number 3 seed, the Houston Cougars, facing off against the number 14 seed, Georgia State. So coming from me in this 3-14 matchup in the Midwest region, I'm going to take the Houston Cougars to defeat Georgia State. And now the next matchup. It is the 7-10 matchup between the number 7 seed, the Terriers of Wofford, facing off against the number 10 seed, the Pirates of Seton Hall. So coming from me in the 7-10 showdown, I am taking the Wofford Terriers to defeat the Seton Hall Pirates. And now the final first round matchup in this year's NCAA tournament, the 2-15 matchup between the number 2 seed in the Midwest region, John Calipari's Kentucky Wildcats, facing off against the number 15 seed, Abilene Christian. So coming from me in this final first round matchup in this year's NCAA tournament, I'm going to go with John Calipari's Kentucky Wildcats to defeat Abilene Christian. And now on to my second round predictions to see who will make it to my Sweet 16. Starting off in the East region with number 1 Duke facing off against number 8 VCU. So coming from me in this matchup, I am taking my Duke Blue Devils to defeat VCU. Now the next matchup, the 5-4 showdown between Mississippi State and Virginia Tech. So coming from me in this second round matchup, I am taking the Virginia Tech Hokies to defeat the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Now the next matchup, the 6-3 showdown between the Maryland Terrapins, number 6 seed, facing off against the number 3 seed, the LSU Tigers. So coming from me in this 6-3 matchup, I am taking the LSU Tigers to defeat the Maryland Terrapins. And the final second round matchup in the East region, I am between the number 7 seed, Louisville Cardinal, facing off against Tom Izzo's Michigan State Spartans. Coming from me, I am taking the Michigan State Spartans to defeat Louisville. And now my predictions for the second round in the West region of this year's NCAA tournament. Starting off with the first matchup, it is the number 1 seed, the Gonzaga Bulldogs, facing off against Jim Boeheim's Syracuse Orangemen. So coming from me in this second round matchup, to see who will make it to the Sweet 16, I am taking the Gonzaga Bulldogs to defeat the Syracuse Orangemen. Next, you have the 12-4 matchup between my upset pick, the Murray State Racers, facing off against the number 4 seed, the Florida State Seminoles. So coming from me in this second round matchup, I am taking the Florida State Seminoles to defeat the Murray State Racers. Next, you have the 6-3 matchup pitting the Buffalo Bulls facing off against the number 3 seed, the Texas Tech Red Raiders. So coming from me in this second round matchup, I am taking the Buffalo Bulls to defeat the Texas Tech Red Raiders. And now on to my final second round predictions in the West region of this year's NCAA tournament, pitting the Nevada Wolfpack, the number 7 seed, facing off against the number 2 seed, the Michigan Wolverines. So coming from me in this final second round matchup in the West region to see who will make it to the Sweet 16, I am taking the Michigan Wolverines to defeat the Nevada Wolfpack. And now my second round predictions in the South region, starting off with Virginia facing off against Ole Miss. Coming from me, I am taking the Virginia Cavaliers to defeat Ole Miss. Next, you have my 5-4 matchup between the Wisconsin Badgers facing off against the Kansas State Wildcats. So coming from me in this second round matchup, I am taking the Wisconsin Badgers to defeat the Kansas State Wildcats. And now the next second round matchup pitting the number 6 seed, the reigning champs, the Villanova Wildcats, facing off against the number 3 seed, the Purdue Boilermakers. So coming from me in this second round matchup, I am taking Villanova, the reigning champs, to defeat Purdue. And the final second round matchup in the South region of this year's NCAA tournament, pitting the Cincinnati Bearcats, the number 7 seed, facing off against the Tennessee Volunteers, the number 2 seed. So coming from me in this final second round matchup in the South region of this year's NCAA tournament, I am taking the Tennessee Volunteers to defeat the Cincinnati Bearcats. And now my final second round predictions down in the Midwest region, pitting North Carolina versus Utah State. Coming from me in this second round matchup, as much as I hate them, I'm going to take the North Carolina Tar Heels to defeat Utah State. Next, it's the battle of the two of the well-known coaches in college basketball. The number 5 seed Auburn Tigers facing off against the Kansas Jayhawks. Bruce Pearl versus Bill Self. So coming from me in the second round matchup, I gotta go with Bill Self and the Kansas Jayhawks to defeat the Auburn Tigers. Next, you have the 6-3 showdown between Iowa State and the number 3 seed, the Houston Cougars. So coming from me in this second round matchup, I'm going to go with another upset. I'm going to go with the Iowa State Cyclones to defeat the Houston Cougars. And now my finals, second round predictions in this year's NCAA tournament in the Midwest region. The 7th seed, the Wofford Terriers, facing off against John Calipari's Kentucky Wildcats. So coming from me in the final second round matchup in this year's NCAA tournament, I'm going to go with John Calipari's Kentucky Wildcats to defeat the Wofford Terriers. And now on to my Sweet 16 predictions to see who will make it to the Elite 8 in my bracket. Starting off once again in the East region with an ACC rivalry showdown between my Duke Blue Devils and the Virginia Tech Hokies. So coming from me in this Sweet 16 showdown, Virginia Tech beat us when Zion Williams wasn't playing. With Zion Williams, it's gonna be a whole different story. So I'm taking my Duke Blue Devils to defeat the Virginia Tech Hokies. And now the final Sweet 16 matchup in the East region, pitting the number 3 seed, the LSU Tigers, facing off against the number 2 seed, the Michigan State Spartans. So coming from me in this final Sweet 16 matchup in the East region, this one's tricky. I'm going to go with the Michigan State Spartans to defeat the LSU Tigers. Now on to my Sweet 16 predictions in the West region, starting off with the Gonzaga Bulldogs facing off against the Florida State Seminoles. So coming from me in this Sweet 16 showdown, this may be the Gonzaga's toughest test, but I'm going to go with the Gonzaga Bulldogs to defeat the Florida State Seminoles. And now the final Sweet 16 matchup in the West region, pitting the Buffalo Bulls facing off against the number 2 seed, the Michigan Wolverines. So coming from me in this final Sweet 16 matchup in the West region of this year's NCAA tournament, I got to go with the Michigan Wolverines to defeat the Buffalo Bulls. And now my picks for the Sweet 16 in the South region, pitting the Virginia Cavaliers facing off against the Wisconsin Badgers. So coming from me in this Sweet 16 matchup in the South region, I'm going to go with the Virginia Cavaliers to defeat the Wisconsin Badgers. And now the final Sweet 16 matchup in the South region, pitting the reigning champs, the Villanova Wildcats, facing off against the Tennessee Volunteers. So coming from me in this final Sweet 16 matchup in the South region, this one's a tricky one. But I'm going to go with the reigning champs, the Villanova Wildcats, to defeat the Tennessee Volunteers. And now my picks for the Sweet 16 in the Midwest region, pitting the hated North Carolina Tar Heels facing off against the Kansas Jayhawks. So it's Roy Williams versus Bill Self. This one's going to be a good one. So coming from me in this Sweet 16 matchup, as much as I hate picking them, I got to go with the North Carolina Tar Heels to defeat the Kansas Jayhawks. And now the final Sweet 16 matchup in this Midwest region and in the NCAA tournament, pitting the Iowa State Cyclones facing off against John Calipari's Kentucky Wildcats. So coming from me in this final Sweet 16 matchup in the Midwest region, gotta go with John Calipari's Kentucky Wildcats to defeat the Iowa State Cyclones. And now my Elite 8 prediction to see who will be making my Final Four. Starting off in the East region with the Duke Blue Devils facing off against the Michigan State Spartans. So it's Coach K versus Tom Izzo. So coming from me in this Elite 8 matchup to see who will make it to my Final Four. Oh, this one's so tricky, but I'm going to go with my Duke Blue Devils to defeat the Michigan State Spartans and advance to the Final Four. And now my Elite 8 predictions in the West region, pitting the Gonzaga Bulldogs facing off against the Michigan Wolverines. So coming from me in this Elite 8 matchup to see who will be making it to my Final Four. Oh, this one's tricky. But I'm going to go with the Michigan Wolverines to upset the Gonzaga Bulldogs and advance to the Final Four. And now my Elite 8 prediction in the South region, pitting the Virginia Cavaliers facing off against the reigning champs, the Villanova Wildcats. So coming from me in this Elite 8 matchup in the South region to see who will be making it to my Final Four. Oh, this one's tricky, but I got to go with the reigning champs, the Villanova Wildcats, to defeat the Virginia Cavaliers. And now my final Elite 8 matchup to see who will make it to my Final Four, pitting the North Carolina Tar Heels facing off against the Kentucky Wildcats. So coming from me in this final Elite 8 matchup to see who will be making my Final Four. Nothing against North Carolina, but I gotta go with John Calipari's Kentucky Wildcats to defeat the Tar Heels and advance to the Final Four. And now on to my Final Four predictions, starting off with the first semifinal matchup, pitting the Duke Blue Devils facing off against the Michigan Wolverines. And you know these two have history. We know about the Fave Five. We know about the years when they had Jalen Rose and Chris Webber. And this Michigan team can definitely make another deep run and maybe make it to back-to-back national championships. But coming from me in this first semifinal matchup to see who will be making it to the national championship, I gotta go with my Duke Blue Devils to defeat Michigan and advance to the national championship. And now the second semifinal matchup to see who will be facing Duke in the national title between the reigning champs, the Villanova Wildcats, facing off against the Kentucky Wildcats. So coming from me in the second semifinal matchup to see who will be heading to the national championship game in Minneapolis. This one's a toss-up. This one's hard pick because Nova has a chance to repeat for the first time since 06-07 Florida. And you got Kentucky with Calipari, who knows how to win. So coming from me, I'm going to go with the Kentucky Wildcats to defeat the reigning champs, the Villanova Wildcats, and advance to the national championship. And now my national championship prediction between my Duke Blue Devils and the Kentucky Wildcats. And these two absolutely hate each other. And that's what makes a fantastic national championship. History between the two. Multiple national championships between Coach Krzyzewski and Coach Calipari. That just makes it a perfect final. So coming from me in this year's national championship, man, oh man, this one's such a tricky pick. But coming from me, I with Zion Williamson on this lineup and that array of talent they got on this Duke team, I don't see anybody beating them. So I am taking my Duke Blue Devils to defeat the Kentucky Wildcats and win I think they win their 6th national championship. And those are my NCAA tournament bracket predictions. Woo! Now, I want to thank you guys so very much for watching this video today. Comment below, who do you have winning this year's NCAA tournament? I got Duke winning it all this year over Kentucky. Let me know in the comment section below your picks and your opinions. And for sure, put up your brackets in the comment section if you can. That would be so great. And as always, represent your college basketball team. Even if they didn't make the NCAA tournament this year and they're in the NIT, still represent them. Let's have a conversation about it. Of course, I'm always on to see your comment, like it, and of course reply right back to me because comments are absolutely always welcome on this channel. I do want to thank you guys so very much for watching my tournament predictions this year on the channel. Now, before you guys go, you guys can never forget to do this. That like button, comment, share with your friends. Of course, super kick that like button like only you guys can. Of course, you guys can never forget to do this as well. That subscribe button, become part of this bigger and dangerous alliance. And I will see you guys next week for 4 big videos. Later days, guys, and peace. March Madness begins this week, baby.